I'll let you take it from here, Buck, in response to what I said before the break.
Sure. I mean, look, and this is tough because there's a sense of there's outrage and there's mobilization underway right now. So when we talk about what are the U.S. and when I say the U.S., what are essentially the West, Europe, what was done that was, even if you want to say exploited by or seized on Putin, it's at least worth being aware of what happened that pushed it to this place. And look, I would argue that the Russians have been running. That Georgia was effectively a dry run for this, and the setting up of the two autonomous zones of South of Ossetia and Abkhazia, where they just decided, okay, well, these are Russian-speaking enclaves in a internationally recognized country, but they're now not. They're something that they're Russian puppet states, client states. So the Russians have been angling for this for a while too. To be fair, this is, Putin is not a guy who's sitting around thinking about how he can get along better with the international community and be a moral actor. He thinks he's being a great game power strongman actor.
Well, and
right?
that's worth pausing on too. First of all, so Georgia happened in 2008, and then we did nothing really afterward. Yeah. But that's another important thing. So Putin. People who are having a love affair with Putin in our country, I mean, there is a certain faction that really, they love the guy because they think, well, I don't know, he's not woke and he's a strong man. Okay, let's not confuse ourselves. Those things are true. But Putin is not rooting for the United States of America at all. Putin would love to see the American experiment fail, has done his level best to try to make it fail without necessarily leaving fingerprints on all of his efforts. What he really wants is chaos. He'll take the Black Lives Matter messages and have his bots promo that all over social media. And then he'll take the more right-wing response to it and promo that all over social media. He doesn't care which side wins. He cares that we're fighting. He's absolutely trying to subvert unity within the United States, criticize capitalism, and would love to see the United States in a weaker, more submissive position. So people shouldn't get confused about what Putin wants with respect to us or our country.
Yeah, I think that's all true. And I think that's important context for all of our thinking about what he's going to do and also what we should do and have done up to this point. So it's worth remembering. He is zero sum with the U.S.
Yep.
And you have to, when we see it this way, or when people think of it this way, I think it's helpful, Megyn, that when he says what the greatest tragedy of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mean, this is a mentality that is not, you have to be aware of it in the Russian context to understand that they view all of this, that the creation of these other republics, the carving up of the former Soviet Union, Putin views this as unjust and something that should be corrected. He views the separation of Russian-speaking peoples as a result of these national boundaries as an affront to the dignity of the Russian people. I mean, there's a whole history here as well that I think is not well understood in the West, of the Russians thinking of themselves as the latest incarnation, if you will, of Rome. And I know this is, but Russian Orthodox Christianity is an offshoot of Eastern Orthodox or Byzantine Christianity, and they view themselves as the defenders and the not just the heirs, the inheritors now of that legacy. And so there's all these stories of not just national, but civilizational pride that go into the Russian thinking about who they are and what their role is in the world, and trying to get that back at some level after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But there, believe it or not, there is a thread that there was the ancient Rome that we think of, and then there was, which obviously became a Christian empire, and then there's the Eastern Orthodox Christian Empire out of Constantinople, Byzantium, and then it moved to Russia, and they're the final inheritors of the legacy of Orthodox Christianity and the defenders of it. And that's why the Russian Orthodox Church is, the separation between church and state does not exist there. The Russian Orthodox Church is very much a part of a lot of what Putin's nationalism and narratives are. So in all of that context, I think when you look at what the U.S. did or how we handled this up to this point, it should have been we should have seen this coming at some level, I think. I do believe that there was a sense that he wouldn't do this, that there was a, oh, no, he won't attitude about Ukraine that was ignoring the trajectory and ignoring the recent history. And I think the Biden administration...
Talk about that? Can we talk about what specifically we did? Can we talk about the United States, some call it a soft coup, 2014, trying to remove this pro-Soviet leader of Ukraine.
The Maidan Square and
that's what they called it, the Maidan Revolution. But, Putin would say, whatever you want to call it, it was the United States basically deposing the pro-Russian leader of Ukraine and replacing him with a pro-Western leader of Ukraine. And our expansion of NATO, forget Ukraine, but our expansion of NATO prior to Ukraine, and at least talking about whether Ukraine could be part of it, and putting troops, closer and closer to his borders, which he said, you guys didn't like that in Cuba, and I don't like it here, and you better stop it. And there's no reason for it. World War II is a long time ago. The Soviet Empire fell. What are you doing? It's provocative, and I will respond. And Crimea happened because of the 2014 change in leaders, and that was one of the things he did. There was Crimea, and then there were the two separatist areas. In any event, how do you see our own manipulation of Ukraine? Because some are now looking. One of the things I said early on in this controversy was Ukraine did nothing to deserve this, and I think that's still fair to say. They did nothing to deserve what he's doing to them, but maybe it's too simplistic because they and the West have been maneuvering in a way that's been provocative to Russia. Again, none of this is to justify his behaviors. It's just background.
Yeah, I think understanding the full context is necessary for sound decision making. If we allow emotion, and there has been a lot of that, and I think a lot of the analysis. I mean, I've seen people that I know who are people that have real military experience, including at the command level, going on TV and saying, oh my gosh, the Ukrainians are just kicking Russian ass, and this is going to be, if we keep going here. And I'm looking at this saying, there's no way. They're caught up in the emotion, right? They're forgetting what they already know and what they've experienced in the past, which is the way a military campaign like this would unfold. So just as a point of prefacing, I think that's important. And then as to what we've done, I mean, why does NATO exist? I was in Afghanistan right before the first time I actually ever did your show, Megyn, back in the day. I was in Afghanistan, and people forget it. That was a NATO mission, but everyone's kind of sitting around saying, or our NATO allies were there. We're saying, well, wait, is NATO now a global peacekeeping force? Is that why? The answer is no, not really. I mean, it's actually supposed to be about Russia, or it was about the Soviet Union. Yeah. And so the continuation of this it's a military alliance. If anyone attacks anyone, now people say it also keeps the peace in Europe because this way, France won't invade Germany or whatever, stuff that obviously historically was a big problem.
Used to be a thing.
Yeah, it used to be a thing, definitely. But in the meantime, we look at what's going on with Russia, and you have to say, okay, so now it really is about creating a military buffer and essentially make sure that Russia stays, outgunned on its, not just when it comes to invading NATO countries, but even on its own periphery countries like Ukraine and Georgia and areas that were now the Baltics are under the NATO umbrella, which is a huge sore spot for Putin and Russians who think like him. But, we were thinking about taking a military alliance that does thoroughly outgun the Russians in a conventional military sense, right up to the borders of his country. I mean, that was under active discussion. Again, this is not this is not to be a Ukraine's actions have resulted in this discussion, but just to understand how we got here. I think people underestimated in the West Putin's resolve about this and how much. He views it as a provocation. He also views it, I think, at some level as an opportunity. I mean, he does want Russian client states because, of course, he does, because he thinks about this in a zero-sum way. He doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about the day-to-day folks who live in Ukraine or Georgia or the Baltics or you name it. It's just whatever is best for the project of Russian, dare I say, in his mind, Russian greatness or the reconstituting of Russian greatness.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.